Veronica was the kind of woman that made men lose their minds. She was beautiful, elegant, and had a presence that could command a room. But she was also proud, too proud, in Dapo's opinion. Dapo had tried everything. Flowers, expensive perfumes, jewelry, yet Veronica wouldn't even give him a second glance. She had taken his gifts but had never let him in, dismissing his advances with a polite yet firm coldness. She will be mine, Dapo vowed to himself. By any means necessary. Unknown to many, Dapo wasn't just an ordinary man. He was part of a dark brotherhood that thrived on power, lust, and supernatural dominion. His hunger for Veronica wasn't just physical, it was about control. He had conquered many women, leaving them drained and empty, their spirits bound to his will. Veronica would be no different. If by now you have not subscribed to this channel, please do that now. Share and give this video a thumbs up. One night, under the cover of darkness, Dapo transformed. His body elongated, his skin turned black as the void, and his eyes burned red with unnatural fire. He had become an incubus, a demon of lust, a nightmare that fed on the pleasures of the flesh. As Veronica lay in her bed, her chest rising and falling in peaceful slumber, Dapo slipped into her room like a shadow. She didn't stir as his cold fingers traced the curve of her body, as his whispered spells clouded her mind in a web of intoxicating pleasure. In that moment, she became his. Her body responded even though her soul resisted. And it didn't stop that night. Night after night, Dapo returned, feeding off her, relishing her essence while she remained unaware of the dark force draining her. By day, she grew weaker, paler, more withdrawn. By night, she was a vessel of forbidden pleasure, bound in an unseen contract. Veronica was slipping away, and she didn't even know it. Then came Idris. Handsome, charismatic, and unlike any man Veronica had ever met. He was soft-spoken yet commanding, distant yet magnetic. There was something about him, something that made her feel protected, yet terrified. For the first time in months, she felt alive. When she was with him, the nightmares stopped. The fatigue that had plagued her disappeared. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she found herself drawn to him in ways she had never felt before. Dapo, sensing another man's presence in Veronica's life, was enraged. He had staked his claim, and he would not be challenged. It was time to eliminate the competition. That night, Dapo returned to Veronica's room, his hunger insatiable. He was ready to reclaim what was his. But as he entered, something was different. The air was thick, charged with an energy he couldn't place. And then, he saw him. Idris stood over Veronica's sleeping form, watching her with an intensity that sent a chill down even Dapo's demonic spine. But something was wrong. The way Idris looked at him, the knowing smirk, the cruel amusement in his eyes. Realization hit Dapo like a thunderbolt. Idris wasn't a man. Idris was Nkoyo. The witch had tricked him and outsmarted him. Dapo's breath hitched. How? When? Nkoyo let out a soft chuckle, her form shifting slightly, the edges of her being flickering between the alluring Idris and the terrifying visage of the old witch. You thought you were the only one who could play with people's souls, Dapo, she whispered. Veronica was never yours. She was mine all along. Dapo staggered back, his form flickering as fear gripped him. For the first time in his wretched existence, he realized he had been the prey all along. A dimly lit shrine hidden deep within the outskirts of Ibugu. Candles flicker ominously, casting eerie shadows on the cracked mud walls. The air is thick with the scent of burnt herbs and ancient incantations. Dapo storms in, his face twisted with anger and disbelief. Akand, seated on a wooden throne-like chair, watches him with calculating eyes. Dapo paced furiously, his fingers twitching as he recounted what had happened. She played me, Akand. Nkoyo, she tricked me, he spat, his voice seething with rage. Akon raised an eyebrow, unbothered. What are you rambling about now? Dapo took a deep breath, his mind flashing back to that night. I had been visiting Veronica for weeks, savoring her beauty, feeding off her purity. She resisted me at first, but night after night, she was mine. She never knew, never suspected a thing. I was her nightmare, her unseen lover, her secret tormentor. And I told Nkoyo about it, I told her everything, thinking she'd be pleased. He paused, his jaw clenching. But the night I returned to claim what was mine, something was different. Veronica was no longer alone. She had a man in her bed. But it wasn't just any man, it was Idris. And I knew immediately, Nkoyo had taken my place. Akon's eyes widened slightly, but she let Dapo continue. I watched from the shadows, waiting for him to leave, waiting for my chance. But then, Idris turned, and looked directly at me. His eyes, they weren't normal, Akon. They were hers. Nkoyo had stolen my prey, taking what was mine without a word, and worse, she made sure I knew it. She smacked at me before fading into the shadows with Veronica still in her arms, completely unaware that she was sleeping with something worse than me. Akon exhaled deeply, shaking her head. You're surprised? She asked coldly. You thought she saw you as an equal. Nkoyo only sees tools, Dapo. And when tools outlive their usefulness, she replaces them. Dapo clenched his fist. She will pay for this. Akon gave a knowing chuckle. She already has debts she cannot pay. Dapo looked at her curiously. What do you mean? Akon leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. If you... Dapo frowned. What about him? Akon's eyes darkened. He was supposed to leave. Dapo scoffed. Nkoyo doesn't spare anyone. Akon's face twisted with resentment. I know that now. But I begged her, Dapo. I pleaded with her to let the child go. I needed him alive, for my own sake. Do you think my fake church survives on faith alone? No. I have clients, powerful ones, desperate ones. People who pay, people who seek refuge under my anointing. The moment Nkoyo targeted Ifyok, I knew she was pushing too far. Dapo narrowed his eyes. What happened? Akon's voice took on an eerie, sorrowful tone. Ifyok's father was one of my most loyal visitors. A businessman who had survived countless spiritual battles. He trusted me, came to me for protection, power, and favors. I guided him, I advised him. But Nkoyo, she saw him as a threat, an enemy to be crushed. She destroyed him and left his son as a mark of her triumph. Akon inhaled sharply, as if reliving the moment. One night, I heard the spirits whisper. I knew she had gone to Ifyok's home. I ran, Dapo. I ran to stop her. By the time I got there, it was too late. The house was quiet, too quiet. The air was thick, suffocating. I pushed open the door and saw the boy on his mat, his small body lifeless, his lips slightly parted as if he had whispered his last word in fear. And then I saw her, standing in the corner, her figure half shadow, half smoke. She turned to me with those cursed eyes and smiled. You're too late, she said. He belongs to me now. I screamed at her, you've doomed us both. They will turn on us. But she only laughed and vanished into the darkness. Akon's hands trembled with rage. The next morning, my church was empty. The whispers had begun. My clients, they feared me. They thought I had lost control, that I could no longer protect them. Nkoyo's greed ruined me. She turned to Dapo, her eyes burning with fury. We both have been betrayed. And Nkoyo thinks she is untouchable. Dapo leaned in, a slow smile forming on his lips. Then maybe it's time she learns what true betrayal feels like. Akon smacked. Oh, she will. And this time, she won't see it coming. For continuation of this and other interesting stories, please like, share, and subscribe.